FullCircle.
Oh, thank you. I try to talk loud. We have two speakers, Father John and A.J. Cresswell. He is the National Program Director. Okay, and of course, we know who Father John is. Actually, he's the Executive Director, correct? Okay. So if they will come up now and do what you want to do. We're going to have a lot of questions afterward, too.
Do my song and dance.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, good evening. Thanks for coming and for showing interest in our FullCircle program. I just want to give you a little kind of idea how it all got started. And it got started with a prayer, as most things do. When I was back in Philadelphia, I was the director of chaplaincy services for the Philadelphia prison systems for a long time. And one day, one of the correctional officers came up to me. She was a single mom. She was raising a really wonderful but out of control 15-year-old boy. And she said, my son keeps getting in trouble. He's gotten expelled from school. He's gotten picked up by the police. And he keeps coming home drunk. Can you help him? So I did really, the only thing I knew at that point was I took him to a AA meeting, 12-step meeting. And he actually liked it. He was a great kid, and we went a few times. But I kind of realized at that point there wasn't really anybody that he could relate to in that group. Everybody was 20, 30 years older than him and had a very different experience in their life. And unfortunately, not too long after that, he went out with his friends on a weekend drinking, jumped in the river, and drowned. And I remember I was at the funeral, and I said to, dear God, please help me to find a way to help young people like this. And that was the prayer. That was in the late 90s that happened. And then I came to Arizona. I became a pastor at Mount Carmel in Tempe. And we had, this wonderful family. They had one of their kids in our school. Family just like a lot of your families. They participated in everything. And after a while, I realized they had an older son that I had never met. And so I said, what's the deal with your older son? They said, well, he doesn't really come anymore because he was a sophomore at Seton Catholic High School, and he got expelled because of drugs. And they told me their story, which was a harrowing story about how they didn't know how to find help for their kid. And at that point, it was like everybody had turned their back on them. So after that, I went down to the school and spoke to the principal, who was a man by the name of Dr. Riley at the time. This is early 2000s. And I said, can't we do better than this as a Catholic school? Can't we help somebody? And he said, well, Father, we have a zero tolerance policy. And I said, well, a zero tolerance policy is great for you, the administrator, because it's an easy decision. But for that family and that young man, it didn't help them. And it really harmed that young person's relationship with the church and with God. Because if you're 15, 16, you get kicked out of Catholic school, you're getting kicked out of the Catholic Church in their mind. You can't separate the two. And he said, Father, I agree with you. What can we do? He was a wonderful man. And so came up with an idea. We'd start a support group in the school. So if a kid got in trouble, rather than going to the principal, kind of send them to the counselor, send them to us. So the agreement was for the young people who got in trouble, if you keep your nose clean, you participate, you could stay in the school. And so that's how we started. That was the genesis of the whole thing. And I hired a youth counselor at that point, and we just started doing it, and it worked really well, mostly. The problem with doing it in school is half the faculty really liked it, the other half didn't, and you get, it's just the way it is. And my point to them was, as a school, you shouldn't have to worry about this problem. You should worry about teaching. That's your job. Let other people handle these other problems that come along that you confront. So it started to grow, and then it became other schools were interested, so kind of pulled it out of the school setting, and we got a little space we rented, which was right next to Mount Carmel, because we didn't have any space at the parish, and we could then start helping kids in other schools, and we would work with the school, have an agreement with them to keep them informed if the young person was participating, and we also found it really important that parents participate as well, because the success rate goes way up when parents are involved in it, because substance misuse and other types of problems affect the whole family. And the whole family may not realize it, but their behavior starts to shift around that. And they start sometimes making unhelpful decisions that only aggravate the problem or make it continue on. So we did that, and I guess it was 2 years we were doing it then that way, and I got a call from some families in the Kansas City area, and they said, "We heard what you're doing. We need help up here with our kids." And I'm like, "Okay, great." So we went up and met them and agreed to start a chapter up there. We found a parish that was willing to host us, Christ the King Parish in Overland Park. And I had no idea what I was doing at that point. Didn't know how to do that, from a distance. But God provided and showed us the way, and we're still there many years later in the Kansas City area. And it was a growing process. We kind of learned what it should look like, what structure we needed to have, and how we needed to run it. Not too long after that, there was a sober high school that just focused on young people in recovery in Denver, Colorado. They heard about us, and they said, "We really could use your support," because just the school environment alone wasn't going to make it. So we went up there. Now, at this point, I'm more sophisticated, and I said to them, "Okay, so where do you get your funding?" And they said, "Well, there's this foundation." I said, "Could you put me in touch with them?" And we did, and we formed a great partnership that's been very, very strong. In fact, 80% of the kids in that school come from our program. And it's a great alternative for young people, because one of the places they get drugs is in school. So changing that environment becomes very important, and that's a great example of it. And after that, North Carolina is Charlotte is the most recent program we started. Again, there was a family who heard what we were doing, was willing to support us, and so we've gotten up and running there in the last year. In Colorado, we have Denver, and we have Centennial and Boulder, so we have three locations up there. Here, we're in Chandler, and we're operating also in Scottsdale. So that was kind of how it all evolved. I didn't expect it to evolve. I just wanted to have this little, really kind of ministry of the parish I was at, to outreach to families who just needed some support, because I found out not every teen likes to fit in the teen youth group in the parish. And what do we do about that? And who's looking after those kids? And for a lot of families, they don't know what to do. They don't know what the solution is. They also don't know what the problem is. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Because when we think of an addict, an alcoholic, you think of somebody who's living on the street behind a dumpster. But they didn't start there. They started way back here somewhere. And maybe if some point there had been some effective intervention, they never would have made it to living behind the dumpster. So for young people, I think we could interrupt the whole process early on and save a lot of tragedy from happening. What's really changed in the last several years, is the dangers, the potency and the lethality of the drugs that are out there are really dangerous. And so, if you're an alcoholic, you could go on for a long time. Even a heroin addict could go on for a long time. But now, once you start mixing in high potency THC in the cannabis, as well as fentanyl in a lot of the opioids, that's really a game changer. So intervening as soon as possible becomes really, really important. So I set the program up as a no-cost program because cost is often a barrier for families to get their young person help. And oftentimes programs are very expensive. Families will often come to us and we're like the third or fourth program they tried after they spent $40,000, $50,000 on programs that weren't all that effective for their young person. So then they're out of resources, and what do they do? Where do they go for help? The other reality is that you're raising 3 or 4 kids, you don't have that extra cash. But you could participate in a program that's not going to charge you. So I am forever fundraising and doing grants and all that sort of thing to keep it alive, and God is very good so far. And what we try to do is early intervention, but we also try to make it fun. Teenagers like to have fun. They're fun machines, right? And a big part of that is being sober has to be more fun than getting high. Because if you ask a young person, why'd you start using drugs or drinking? Oh, it was fun. We were having fun. That's usually that reason. So if not using drugs and alcohol isn't as fun, they'll probably go right back to it. So we try to create a really supportive, fun environment. And the problem is they're still teenagers. I tell parents we can't cure being a teenager. So get ready for it if you don't have one yet. So they're still going to do teenage stuff, but hopefully they'll be able to do it sober. And by incorporating the parents, it really helps to put up the proper boundaries and so that young people could experience both the positive side of staying sober as well as the negative side of some of their worst behaviors. And by doing that, we have a really, really high success rate. Because one of the weaknesses in a lot of programs that I found was that you send a kid to a program, say intensive outpatient or a residential program, 60 days, 90 days, or even a little bit longer. The question is, what happens afterwards? What happens afterwards? And that's where the weakness falls in. So our program is designed for them to stay with us for a full 2 years. So by that point, they could work out some of their problems, some of their issues, and they could develop a really strong support network of other young people who will support them, challenge them, and walk with them along the way. And then to develop a plan, okay, what's the next steps once you're out of here? Help them figure out the school situation or even a career situation so they have at least a little bit of a plan by the time they leave us. And that length of time, 18 to 24 months, is really, really effective. So we will take kids from other programs who've completed successfully other programs, and they kind of do their aftercare with us. We work with a lot of the school districts as well to help them assess the problems that they may be facing in their schools. But having that long-term recovery process, it really kind of makes the difference. It shoots the success rate way up. And again, part of that's the starting point. We have kids as young as 13, so they may be with us a little bit longer than the kid who came in at 7 and that sort of thing. But we have found that it really, really effective. And so, some people will send their kids to like a wilderness program in Utah, which are some great programs. You learn wonderful skills. But I always say, that's great, but they're not going to live in the wilderness of Utah. They're going to live in Mesa or Tempe or Phoenix. So we got to get them a support system right where they live so that they know what the resources are and how to survive that environment with the challenges that they'll be faced with. So, I started out, it was myself. I was doing the parents. I had one staff member kind of doing the kids. And now, how many do we have? 20-some? Yeah, 27. 20-some staff people across the country. And AJ is the national director, so he's kind of right below me and helps to coordinate the daily operations of the programs. Each location has its own director, so they can kind of work with the individual staff. And AJ's been with me 11 years now, and really been an important piece of helping the program to grow and to develop it to where we need to be, because we had a lot of rough edges when we started, but now we're kind of got. And AJ is expecting his 4th child soon, so I'm grateful he's here tonight to share his perspective on it, really tell you a little bit more about the kind of the nitty-gritty, how exactly we work it, what it looks like, what happens when a family calls us, comes in the door, where do we go from there?
Thank you, Father. Hey, everybody. I'm AJ. I am the National Director for FullCircle. I'm trying to get this in right. I'll turn it off. And I am expecting my 4th child, and I'm scared to death. So if any of y'all have any experience on that, you can fill me in later. You'd think after you have 3, you're like, good, you're fearless, and that's not the case for me. So, but we are excited. And I was laughing when Father John was talking about the growth and the number of staff and that kind of thing, because I think we both, when I came onto this, it was just in Mount Carmel, just in Tempe, and I remember kind of thinking like, oh, this is wonderful. This is an amazing thing. It's, this ministry that's just helping local youth, and not that we didn't ever have this, vision that it would get bigger, but I don't know that we imagined, 5 states and 8 cities, and so being a national organization. But again, I want to thank y'all for having me, and I'm very grateful to be able to speak about this. And how many of y'all, just to start here, how many of y'all know someone, have a loved one, have a friend that has experienced anything like this, whether it's with a child or with a neighbor or a friend or anyone? Okay. Yeah. Most all of us, I think that's one of the things that we talk a lot about, is that this addiction isn't choosy. It doesn't, really, doesn't matter if you have money, don't have money, where you come from, what part of the city you live in, what school you went to. I mean, the reality is this is just affecting more and more people as we continue to go. And one of the things I like to do is, try to help parents or adults. We call the kids that come in our program, we call them young people. We call younger group or older group. That's their age, 13 to 17 or 18 to 25. But for parents, I always like to try to help you remember what it was like to be a teenager. Do you remember, kind of being a little bit rebellious or having a little bit of a rebellious streak? Did you have any kind of, oh man, I got away with that one thing, and get a little bit of a rush? I think one of the things that we're working with today is we work with teenagers who are emotionally arrested, intellectually twisted, and experientially advanced. And what I mean by that is once they start using drugs and alcohol, they start to stunt their growth emotionally. They stop learning how to deal with life on life's terms. They stop learning how to respond to things that are happening around them. Intellectually twisted is, think of the information that they have that you guys didn't when you were kids, when you were teenagers, when you were growing up. The access that they have to the internet, smartphones, the things that are going on around them. And I don't mean to blame it on our surroundings. I'm just saying that is the reality that we live in. I mean, they have a wealth of knowledge and information on their phone, on their computer, right there in front of them that, a lot of us didn't have when we were kids, when we were growing up. And it's not that they have actual knowledge of this stuff. It's not that they have an emotional understanding like we all do. One of the things that you get as you grow up and you have life experiences is you learn things, right? A lot of us probably learn things by making mistakes, banging our head against the wall or, tripping on the same route that we did 5, 6, 7 times or whatever it was. But we learn from our experiences. We learn from those mistakes. And as I mentioned earlier, if they start using drugs or alcohol, they are stunting their growth emotionally, and they're not learning from those same things. That's why oftentimes you'll see a young person who's struggling with substance abuse, pornography addiction, self-harm, those types of behaviors. You'll see them do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results because they're not learning from that. They don't have the emotional skills, the emotional coping skills that we all learn from life experience. The last one was experientially advanced. So what I mean by that is, think back to when you were a teenager, we all wanted adult experiences. I know I did. I saw people drinking at a party. I saw get-togethers at Christmas. I saw movies, people smoking cigarettes and things like that. And I wanted to have some of those experiences. I didn't necessarily know why I wanted them. I didn't know if they were good or bad or whatever. But I wanted to feel cool. I wanted to have that. I felt like I was missing out on something. And so they have that motor. I mean, if you think back to when you were in adolescence, you have that drive, you have that motor of wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to be something different, wanting to grow up. We always kind of talk about teenagers feel inadequate because they are. And so one of the things that they're coming up against is they don't have the life experience that we were just talking about. They don't have that knowledge. They don't know what that's going to look like. And so they are inadequate. They feel that way. They feel insecure, and a lot of times they succumb to the peer pressure that is around them. Everybody's using, everybody's doing it. And nowadays, if y'all are familiar with this, as Father John was talking about, the potency and the access to these drugs, the chemicals, I mean, it's everywhere. You used to have to go to a seedy part of town to pick up a bag or to try to look at pornography or something like that. Now you have access on your phone. They deliver to your house. Drug dealers do, and I think some of the dispensaries, I don't know about here locally in Arizona, but they'll deliver to your house. And so the access that they have is crazy. And so from there, one of the biggest things that we get is, we know that a family calling us, they're probably calling us on one of the worst days, right? This is not something they expected. This is not what they wanted. This is not the path they were choosing to go down. And as Father John was mentioning earlier, they're terrified. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn, and this is not part of their plan. And so we know that, and we don't take that lightly. When we're meeting with a family and a young person, we know that this is a huge deal. And whether they're just now getting started, dabbling with a drug or self-harm or something like that, or if they've been using for the last year or 2 years, this is a big deal. And we treat it that way because we don't know what it will turn into. Not every kid that walks through the door at FullCircle or that we meet with is a drug addict or an alcoholic, but they are using drugs. They are using drugs for a reason. And again, most of them did start off as, yes, it's fun. This is I look forward to a rush. This is something that all my friends are doing. We're going to a party and having a good time. But the problem with that is they don't know the dangers that they're getting into, and they don't believe that one thing can lead to another, that it can lead to addiction, that it can lead to something more serious, or as we were talking about, that just trying something, 1 or 2 times can be fatal. So we get with those families, we get with the kid and the parents, and they come into the program, and we really just start to assess the situation from there. So it's sitting down with the parents, with the family, grandparents, aunts, whoever's coming in, the caretaker for that kid, and we're spending time with them and starting to get the story and get what they're going through and seeing the different experiences that they're having and being able to listen to them and be able to see, okay, what is going on? What is this kid going through? Is there any past traumas? Is there anything that they've struggled with in the past or that's starting to come up? And then spending time with the kid one-on-one to be able to kind of match the story, to start to see what they're experiencing, what they're going to go through. For one, we know that working with teenagers, they're not always going to be that honest with us, especially if they're in the throes of addiction or use or anything like that. We used to have this kind of ongoing joke where it was like, how do you know if a teenager's lying to you? It's probably when they open their mouth. And again, that's for the teenagers I work with. Not all are that way. So there, it was always kind of knowing, okay, we got to get both sides and really see what's going on and be able to put the whole picture together so that we can formulate a plan to help this family. And that's our whole mission. So if they're appropriate for FullCircle, if they need a higher level of care, if they need some sort of treatment or residential, or if they need more individual counseling for a specific thing, we want to be able to spend time with that family and spend time with that kid, and then just continue to screen that over the next 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, kind of like continuing to see how are they doing through this process? How are they doing in the program? Are they connecting with their peers? Are they starting to mend the relationships with their family? Are they starting to be honest? That's a big one. And, if they are, if you see them, utilizing those tools, then you will start to see the growth and the change in them. Any teenager that decides to not use and choose to live a healthy lifestyle is a miracle, in today's world, I think. And one of the things that I was kind of mentioning that we're up against is it's everywhere. I mean, that's, what they think is cool is Friday night going to a party, Saturday night going to a party. They hear about it at school. It's all over social media. So as Father John was mentioning, we have to be more fun than that. And one of the things that we do, so we operate pretty much 4 nights a week. We have meetings every Monday and Wednesday night here in Chandler, Tuesday night up in Scottsdale. And then we have sober social functions every Friday and Saturday night. Those functions are the coolest place to be on a Friday night or a Saturday night for a teenager. We're going bowling, we're putting on game shows, we're doing dances. We had a big sober concert that we put on in Colorado where all of our kids from the different FullCircle programs road tripped or flew out to Colorado, and we had bands from the different programs. And these kids, they're amazing kids. Like the kids that come into FullCircle and are involved in the program, they're just lost. I mean, they're some of the most amazing people you ever meet, extremely smart, talented, but all the bands that played at that sober concert were kids in the program, and they were really good. We had an Arizona band, a Colorado band, one from Kansas City, and so it was just an amazing thing to get to see them and, to feel like rock stars, and that's one of the things that we're up against for these young people is their self-worth is so low. That's a big part of the reason they continue to use drugs. We mentioned that they start because it's fun, right? That's the hook. Oh, this is fun, this is awesome, this looks like a great time. But what starts to happen is they continue to feel lower and lower about themselves. We have one of the things that will explain it to parents or teenagers, the pain neutral euphoria. And if you think about a young person, starting at, let's say, I'm going to say it's a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being pain, 10 being euphoria. So if every young person is at a 6 or a 7, neutral, living life, having fun, it's no big deal, and they take that hit, they go up to a 10. This is euphoria. They're amazing. They feel on top of the world. That's the rush that it gives them. That's why they want to do it again. Well, what happens is when they come down off that drug, they go just a little bit lower than when they started. If they were at a 6, maybe they're at a 5. If they were at a 5, maybe they're at a 4. But that's why they start to chase that feeling. They want that, so they do it again. They go up to a 9. They don't get quite as high that time. But when they come back down, they go just a little bit lower, maybe a 5, maybe a 4. And they do that over and over and over again, and what ends up happening is that's when you start to see they start to use just to feel normal. So when they come into the program, by the time they get to us, a lot of times they're in that throw, they're in that place where they're using to feel normal, to feel good, and when they're not, they feel like crap, and they don't like themselves, they don't love themselves, they're uncomfortable in their own skin. That's why they treat their families so poorly. That's why they have a hard time in school. It's not anything to do with the things going on outside of them most of the time. It really is. They've started to believe the lies that they've told them about themselves and believe their own low self-worth and their own struggles that they're going through. So again, gratefully, luckily, one of the miracles that God gives us through that program is that that can be restored, and these guys can grow exponentially. And I was one of them. I got sober when I was 17 years old. I was using drugs from the time I was 12 and a half till I was almost 18. And I sobered up and changed my life, through this program and through getting to know other people that were going through it. And that's one of the ways, that's not the end all be all, but everybody that works for FullCircle walked in their shoes. Everybody that works at FullCircle is a young person in recovery or got sober when they were a teenager or a young adult. And so it just gives us a little bit of we can get down and be robber to robber and spend time with them and kind of talk about our experience. Not so much me anymore because I do have almost 4 kids, so they're like, yeah, whatever, you're the establishment, so I'm kind of old to them, to any 15-year-old that walks in the door. But that's kind of the idea, is that we're able to spend time with them and really relate to them on that level and really connect with, I've been there, I know what you're going through, and this really does get better. And but that's what we've been able to see, is that miracle where they really start to gain confidence in who they are. They start to develop better coping skills and figure out the man or woman they want to be. And they really start to connect with God, and they start to figure out, okay, how do I, live a better lifestyle? How do I continue to, grow? Because as Father John was mentioning, there's a lot of transition left in their life, going through high school, graduating, are they going to go to college, you get a job? That's why the program is set up to be as long as it is, because we know that there's a lot going on in their life that they may still need support as they're going through this and continuing to stay sober or go through the process. So that's kind of the basics or the nitty gritty. One of the backbones to our program is the parent group. So we spend a lot of time talking with parents and talking with loved ones and relatives, because it really is so crucial that they are there supporting the young person as they're going through this. But the other side of that is we want parents to feel supported and to not continue to get on that roller coaster, even if their child chooses to. Because as they're going through this, no child comes with a manual to tell you how to raise it. There's definitely not if there was a manual, there's not a section for how to do it when they're on drugs. And so, we really want to just be able to be there for the families and parents that are going through this. And a big part of that is that parent support group, them leaning on other parents and realizing that they're not alone in this, that they didn't break their kid, it's not their fault, they didn't hurt them or ruin them. This is something that a lot of people go through, and they can really start to feel hope and supported through meeting with other parents. And so it really is amazing. It's like I said, it's the backbone of what we do. I think it's why this works, because without them, we wouldn't have houses to go to on Friday nights sometimes. We wouldn't have support for other kids. I was just telling Father John about, we have a couple kids that have those other families that they lean on because their parents live out of state. They came here for college and got caught up in addiction and found FullCircle as a support, but their families live somewhere else. And so, but then they see these amazing, wonderful parents that come every Wednesday night, and they start to become like a second kid to these parents. It's amazing. So, but that's really like the nuts and bolts of what we do. And it really is, it's a journey. We always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so really all the support that we can get for our kids, for the parents, it's just a big deal, because it takes time. I mean, it just does to really heal the family ties. It takes time for the whole family to get better. And so, as a community, that's our goal, is to wrap these guys up and really, take care of them as best we can. So I think that's all I got. You have any questions for me or Father John, I guess? Yes.
Again, when you're talking about the parents, that's a very important thing, because I had one grandson that when he went to college, right away. He never did anything right away. And so, but he was in Tucson, and my daughter was here. And so he called, and he didn't even know what happened to him. So this wasn't regular, this was fentanyl.
Yeah.
And he came home, he didn't even know who he was, he couldn't speak. She took him to the doctor, and thank God, we caught it in time, But when they're far away from you like that, that's really a problem. The other problem I see, as of course all my kids are grown now,
Yeah.
way grown. And, for the parent, when the kids are going to your program, and then they come home, the parent really has to know, because it can be so frustrating, even to try to talk to them, that you got to know the right thing to say.
Right.
And so I think you're meeting with the parents all the time and giving them, the way to handle it is really, because I was sitting there next to my grandson, are you okay? Are you? And my daughter said, just leave him alone. Of course, knowing me, I'm going to get into it. But seriously, the parents' training is important as kids, because they're with the parents and they've got to know how to handle them, and not, because I'm sure at some point you just want to choke them,
Oh, absolutely.
It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's amazing because one of the things that we talk to parents all the time about is the kind of the rule of three. Like if you have something to tell your kid, don't make it any more than three things, because then you're going to start to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 you know? And that's probably normal for every teenager, not just teenagers who struggle with this. But then especially if you add in the low self-worth, the insecurity, they're already kind of like muscling up the effort to get sober and do this, then yeah, it's really important. One of the things that we see parents, because we talk about that, we call it the POPs. It's powers of parental sabotage. And we don't mean it in a like, parent means to sabotage or means to, but it's that. It's, if you're not fully clued in on what's going on, and then your kid comes home and you yell at him because his room's a mess, well, all day he's been talking to us about wanting to get high and he's really struggling today and blah, blah, blah. We tried to call you, couldn't get you on the phone. It's just that. So when we talk about powers of parental sabotage, and then being able to, when you start to feel overwhelmed as a parent, call that parent, call another parent, call one of the staff. And you don't have to deal with this alone. You don't have to resort back to the like normal tools that you thought were working or that you were using. So yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Do you serve females as well?
Oh yes, absolutely. So we are 13 to 17 roughly. So I say roughly because we've worked with a couple 12-year-olds. Again, our goal is early intervention, being able to get there a little bit quicker. And then we have 18 to 25. And that's, again, we don't like to go much older than 25, but we have. It just depends on the situation. But yes, male, female. We do age-appropriate meetings a lot of times because the solution is just different for, a 15-year-old to a 19-year-old, obviously. And then we do gender-appropriate meetings as well, guy-girl meetings. So different events throughout the whole time, like they were just doing. They do, for the weekend events too, they do a bunch of different girls events and stuff like that. It's amazing. that part of it is really actually crucial, to have the bonding experience, to be able to sit with another woman or another female and actually go through what they went through, because that's just different. It's a different story. So yeah, I'm glad you asked, but yeah, we do. Yes.
So I understand when you start, it's an individual
Correct.
meeting with each one of it, and you find out about that and with the parents, and then they go into more of a group.
So what we do, yeah, thank you for asking. And what we do is so that the first 12 weeks, we call it a 90-day commitment. So in the 12 weeks, they're meeting with the staff one-on-one every week. And so whether that's myself, Trace, or one of the staff, and then their parents are also meeting with the staff. And then on the weeknights, so Monday and Wednesday nights, those are group meetings. So they're just basically both. They do both. The first 90 days, they're doing individual appointments, and they're doing the group meetings at night. After the 90 days, the staff is still available to them to meet one-on-one, but then maybe it becomes less frequent, every other week or once a month, just to continue to check in and make sure that they're feeling good about their journey and staying positive. So, but yeah.
Hey, Jude, let me ask you a question.
Of course.
Mostly the parents that bring the kids in, do you ever get them come in on their own?
Absolutely. Actually, now it is happening more and more where the kids are coming on their own, like they're dragging their parents. And I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean? They're hearing about it. It's amazing, actually, because they're hearing about it from friends at school, or they're hearing about it in different ways, and they're showing up. And we, so that's kind of if a kid just shows up to a meeting, we're like, hey, do your parents know where you are? It's the first thing we ask them. And no. Okay, well, they need to know. And they were like, well, I don't want to tell them. So that's one of the things that we run into a lot, actually, is a 16-year-old or 17-year-old show up to a meeting, but they're not really ready to tell their parents what they're struggling with yet. And so on that first meeting, we're pretty light about it, but the goal is to get them to a place of where they're willing to be honest with their folks. And so, but yeah, we get that a lot, actually, where they're coming in on their own, or they're coming because a friend brings them, and then we're having to work the other way and get in touch with the parents. Right now, we have a partnership with the Chandler Unified School District, and we're trying to get with the Mesa Unified School District, and we have with Gilbert, where any kid that gets busted for substance abuse or substance then they come meet with us. They get suspended for 10 days, but they can come meet with us and lower the suspension to 5 days. So obviously a lot of families do it because they want to lower the suspension. But what it does is it allows us to get in front of families that maybe we wouldn't necessarily normally get in front of, and just be able to be a resource and be able to tell them who we are, what we're doing, sit down with the kid and actually kind of evaluate and see what's going on to see if they need more. Were they just in the wrong place at the wrong time? It's kind of rarely that is the case, but it happens. And or if they're remorseful, I mean, if they're really like, man, I really screwed up and want to figure it out. So we've really enjoyed doing that the last year because it's allowed us to just be able to be a resource for more and more families in the community. So, yeah. Yeah.
How many children do you have? I mean, how many can you take care of?
I was going to say I have 3. No. So a general kind of guideline for us is we would like to keep it 1 staff per 10. That isn't always the case because honestly, one of the hardest things that we're up against oftentimes is training staff on it, like getting them up to speed to be able to take on the kind of growth that we've been experiencing. But that is kind of a general, like 1 staff to 10 at most, maybe 15. But like in Phoenix right now, we have almost 40 youth that are coming around on a regular basis. In Colorado, we have, I mean, yeah, he rolled his eyes, like 100. And then, yeah, it's all over Kansas City. We got about 35, I think. So, but yeah, we can, that's kind of the idea, is maybe 10 to 15 per staff, yeah.
And just a couple final points. You know, one of the foundations of the program is peer-to-peer support. So I've had many a parent, especially a father, come up to me really angry. You know, I don't understand it. You know, I've been telling my kid for the last 3 years to do this, and then this 15-year-old tells him, and he does it. And I said, consider that a victory, Dad. Just consider it a victory. They will listen to one another. That's a really critical component. So we really tried to make sure we form and shape them so that the young people who have been with us, you know, can be good influences on the newcomer and help point them in the right direction. And so we use a modified version of the 12 steps from Alcoholics Anonymous. And our second step is, in order to grow, we found it necessary to stick with winners. So if you could think in your own life, you know, is there ever a person who you just say, I really don't want to be around that person because when I'm with them, I'm just not good. And so we help them to look at that. Who are the winners in your life? Who are the people that will support you and help you to grow and encourage? And who are the people that, no fault on them, but when you're with them, you just make really bad choices and decisions. And then, of course, the centerpiece of the program is a relationship with God, or as the steps called, a higher power. And, you know, for us, it all comes down to God and love. Those two things are what heal every ache and every problem. How we get them becomes really important. So young people, you know, once they get introduced to that idea or they see it from a different perspective, it becomes really important to them. And they're forever asking me God questions, you know. And it's kind of fun to walk that journey with them because you could see they're on a path and they're working it out on their own and they're going to own this. And now it becomes important. So, you know, without that, it's just ultimately not going to work. That's a real big piece, you know, for us, and also keeping with our own, you know, value system of how we understand the human person and human dignity is really important. That my staff can model that and be a resource for that because our young people come, you know, from a culture that's way out of whack and balance and very confusing to them, and trying to help them to sort through that and who they are is one of the challenges, you know, that we face in the world that we live in and in the world that they're coming from. And, you know, final point is, you know, if you think of the profile of the family, right? what we see is many, many families who do all the right stuff, but they just don't get the result they were hoping for. And that's frustrating, you know. And I often scratch my head and think, gee, God, like, they did everything we told them to do. Why didn't this work? And then we also have the other end, you know, young people who come to us from really some hellacious family situations, and we really become their family. And as AJ said, the other families become really important resource for those young people because they may never have had parents that were involved in their life in any significant way. So creating that sense of community becomes really important for those young people. And you know, some of the most wonderful parents, because they're willing to almost adopt these young people, you know, some of these parents think nothing of, oh, I got 25 kids coming to my house and I got to start making pancakes for them. But that's real healing. And that goes a long way to helping young people to get healthy and to have a really healthy vision of who they are and what family life is really all about. So we kind of get the whole spectrum of young people, and we could use each other as a resource to support in whatever way we need to support those young people who come to us. So word of mouth is always the best way, you know, for any program, you know, and our young people are really good at recruiting other young people, you know, the kids that we're getting drunk and high with. Maybe you want to come here, you know. So that's what we see, and that's often what they will show up, and especially if they're, you know, under 18, we got to say, okay, we kind of need to talk to your parents, and we have that conversation with them, and then pull them in. And many parents come in bewildered; they didn't realize the extent of the problem, but that's okay. Some of them just come in angry because it's another thing on their plate to do. But we work with all of them. We work kind of through it. So the God piece is really something that's important to us. It's not often present in a lot of programs, but as far as I have seen, it doesn't work without God. Some way, somehow in your life, and we've had people from just about every religious background come in, and we can work with them and get them to where they need to be. We respect that. So whether it's, you know, the practicing religious person or the non-practicing, or, you know, at the other extreme, no faith whatsoever, they're still welcome to participate and figure it out on their own. One of my favorite stories is years ago we had a girl come in, and she was brought in by another girl, and she really wanted to be part of the program, and she really needed to be part of the program. But her parents were Missouri Synod Lutheran, if you know them. They're not very friendly to Catholics at all. And her mother said, I will not have you go to a program that was started by a Catholic priest. And she begged them, she drugged them through the door, and they became like my biggest supporters ever, you know, and because they saw their daughter get well, they healed their relationship with their daughter, and their daughter had a relationship with God. And it was kind of fun to watch that evolve, their resistance, but then they finally realized this, you know, that everything they wanted to give their daughter, they actually were, and they were just getting it in a different way. So there's lots of stories like that over the years, and a lot of young people afterwards came into the church through the RCIA because they wanted to know more, and they explored it, and they became baptized, or they entered the church and are practicing today. So a lot of good stuff happens, you know, once you plant the seed, and God does what God does with us and with our young people.
What kinds of things can we do to help you?
All right, that's AJ's part. Pray.
Yeah, I mean, he's not joking. Lots of prayer. Just, I mean, obviously, like lifting those families up as often as we can. So, I mean, there's, you know, different things that we do. We have, we still run a coffee shop over at Our Lady of Mount Carmel every Sunday. The proceeds of that coffee shop help support Full Circle. We have information back there on the table, so feel free to take it. It's different ways to get involved, different ways to donate, whether it's financially or your time to support, or different. Throughout the year, we try to do different family events, and so there's different ways to volunteer and things like that. But I think some of the biggest ways that we can is, we can donate our time with helping with different events that we put on throughout the year. So we'll hold like banquet dinners or galas and things like that, throughout the years we've had lots of parishioners at Mount Carmel and different parishes come help serve and help support in that way. And then we have back on the table, we call it Round Up Your Change, but it's Be a Change Maker for Full Circle. It's a simple way if being able to link your debit card or credit card. So if you go to a Kroger, I'm from Georgia, if you go to a Fry's and whenever you scan your debit card, it always says, would you like to round up your change to the Cancer Society or something like that. So this one, the one we set up, is any purchase you make on that debit or credit card, the change gets rounded up to Full Circle. Pretty neat, pretty amazing, pretty simple. And so that's one way that you can help. And then I'm trying to think, there's throughout the year we do especially during the holidays for Thanksgiving and Christmas, we do different open houses, gratitude meeting, food drives for those families that need a place to be or a meal during the holidays. So different things like that. But I would say connect with me after this, and love to talk with you more about how to continue to support it. So yes.
If your family needs extra resources and are struggling themselves, do you guys help refer them to different places or help them get the help that they need?
Yeah, we do. Throughout the years, we've connected with different foundations and ministries that help. So, for example, we have scholarship opportunities. So, if a family needs treatment, but they don't necessarily have the funds to do that, we can help somewhat with that. If they've needed, we've helped throughout the years. We've found different ways to help, whether it's financial assistance, if it's getting somebody a meal, if it's getting somebody different counseling, things like that. We try to just, I guess that's the other thing, is we learn about different people's capacity and desire to care for our families, and so then we'll reach out to those families when those types of situations come up. But yeah, if sometimes it's place to stay for the night. It's, we have a lot of young people that need help getting to the events and the meetings and stuff like that. So we already do a lot of that as far as setting up rides and transportation for them and their families. So, but yeah.
What would you say your biggest barrier is, aside from helping the youth that may have their own barriers? What would you say the biggest barrier is, with being able to run the program and get what you need for the program?
Yeah, so I would say our two biggest barriers, one I already started talking about as far as being able to train the staff fast enough. It's kind of is what it is. And the other one is, as we continue to grow, honestly, just being able to learn how to fund it. We've gone after different grants. We've been amazing. We've been the benefactor of very generous donors throughout the years, and people that support us on a regular basis, and we've been able to obtain different grants through different states. But as we continue to grow, that's always going to be the biggest kind of question mark. Is not, I don't want to say the biggest question mark, but it's just one of those things. Okay, how do we keep up with the growth? You know what I mean? How do we continue? Because our vision, our mission is we want to be able to serve every family that we can. We don't want to turn anyone down or say no, and so I think that's probably the hurdle of maybe getting in front of the right people is probably a better way to put it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, should we give these people a little applause for their speaking? If they're willing to wait and talk to you when you get your refreshments, then we can do that before the kids come in. So, thank you both. Appreciate it for coming. And like AJ said, there's some information on the left-hand side of the narthex that you can take. So, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.